ask if you'd like to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Today is January 19th, 2010. The time is 6:30 p.m. And a special meeting of the Greensburg Board of Works and Water Board is called to order. So we'll call the roll, please. June?
Harold.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Linda. Mary.
Here.
Rodney's here.
Didn't hear from him. Oh, he's in. I don't know. Maybe he'll be showing up. I didn't hear anything from him. And roll call please for Water Board. Two, please.
Chuck.
Here.
Tony.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
John.
Here. Yes.
Okay, the main reason we're here for this evening is discussion of utility rate recommendations from Alba Associates. Gary, would you like to explain a bit to us?
Sure. I'd be happy to.
Gary Malone from Alba Associates.
Well, good evening, everyone. Andre is with me. I think Andre, I spoke to you last summer. Andre's actually done all the work. I just didn't get to the process. If there's any tough questions, we're going to let Andre answer all the difficult questions tonight. If you recall, our prior studies went through March of 2008, and we had a discussion late last summer, early fall, and we'll give you an idea of where the utilities stood. And then we were asked to update those studies, and we updated the financial information through September of this past year. We tried to create a cutoff based on a calendar year quarter, and that was the most recent quarter available at that point in time. So what I'd like to do, rather than going through all of these reports in a lot of detail, is to kind of thumb through and hit the highlights on what has changed. And in summary, I think what you're going to find is that there's not been a lot of changes on the cost side. And as we've gone through the analysis, the costs seem to be fairly well in check. What we're beginning to see is an erosion of revenues on the income side. It largely has to do with commercial revenues, and that means it's largely economy related. That is not unique to Greensburg. It's something we're seeing in other parts of the state as well. And those are things that put stress on the utilities. But we'll go through and hit some of the highlights, show you how that has affected the numbers, and then give you our thoughts and some suggestions on what you might want to consider as a course of action moving forward, if that's okay with everyone. I tend to be very informal, and so as we go through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop during the discussion. There's no need to wait till it's over. Just go ahead and stop. Maybe if there's things that don't make sense, or you want to ask a question, just stop as we go along. If it's okay, why don't we start with the water analysis first, and you'll find that it's up in the RE line, say water utility financial analysis. So we'll have a copy of it. As I said, I'm just going to thumb through and hit some of the highlights without going into all the numbers. But I think it's useful to begin by looking at page 2. And page 2, there's an analysis that compares our revenues and expenses and changes in our net assets from year to year. We've gone back to look at 2006 through the 12-month period ending in September of 2009. And if we look at our operating revenues, the line titled Total Operating Revenues, we've seen that number generally increase from about $1.7 million in 2006. We saw it increase to about $1.9 million in 2008, and it's up just a little bit for the 12 months ended in September of 2009. A moment ago, you heard me say that, the revenues, we seem to see a reduction in commercial revenues. That doesn't show up on this schedule completely because of Honda. Because during those time periods, Honda has started operations, so that kind of clouds some of the other things, changes that you see going on behind the scenes. So if we just look at this number, it looks like it's gone up. When we look at some other numbers, we find it's gone up, but not as much as what we might have thought it was going to go up to. The Those revenues go to cover a wide variety of costs. There's a number of operating expenses such as labor costs, power costs, chemical costs, maintenance, upkeep, administrative expenses. And with all utilities, we've seen a general rising trend over the last few years. That's usually inflation driven, but those numbers have not gone up significantly. Those expenses have been held fairly well in check over the last few years. So the amount of revenues that we have left over have really remained about the same from this year compared to the 2006. The monies that are left over, that's the money that we really have available to reinvest in plant and service bonds in those types of things. We want to flip back to page 5. We can look at the fund balances and see what's happening there and how much money and funds need to be kept on hand. The fund balances at the end of September was about $2.6 million, and that's allocated among a number of accounts. When bonds are issued, it's customary to adopt a bond ordinance, and that bond ordinance is in essence a contract that the city makes with the bond holders. And that contract spells out what the money, it sets up various accounts. It tells us what those accounts can be used for, and it tells us how much needs to be held in reserve in each of those accounts. When we compare each of those accounts with the actual balance, we find that overall there is an excess. There's enough money to satisfy those minimum requirements and still have some funds left over. So that's positive news from a cash standpoint. Water utilities is still in good shape from a cash balance. This is where it starts to concern us a little bit. When we were here last summer, we looked at the cash balances at the end of March of 2008, and while we've seen the cash balances grow from about $2.1 million to $2.6 million, the amount of money we had left over has actually gone the other way. So all the increases in cash that we've seen have really been to fund reserves that are required by those ordinances, but the amount left over for other needs has dropped from around $600,000 to about $340,000. Not a material, not a significant change, but we can see that erosion, a little bit of erosion in the cash balances. So if we turn to page 7, what we do is go through a process and start identifying costs in 3 basic categories, because it's those 3 basic categories that we have to take into consideration when we design rates. One, we need to have enough money to make our bond payments. So that's one of the uses of our funds, and that's found on page 7. And Andres laid out for us the principal and interest payments on each of the bond issues. Some of those bonds are going to be paid from tax increment. When bonds are when Honda came, the county created an allocation area. We were capturing new property tax to be created in that area, and a portion of those are being used to retire some of the bonds. So the amount that we have to budget for is about $446,000 per year, and that's shown on page 7. So as we compare all of our revenues to our needs, we're going to want to make sure we budget about $440,000 per year to make our bond payments. On page 8, we go through a process of looking at the second group of costs, and that's our operating expenses. These are our cash operating expenses. We really don't take into consideration non-cash expenses such as depreciation. But over the 12 months ended in September, we found about $1.6 million of cost. We've gone through the accounts and worked with Donna to identify changes in expenses that have occurred during that time period and changes that we could reasonably predict are going to happen over the next 12 months. And we've identified about $70,000 net of total increase. About $45,000 had to do with changes in compensation, wages and salaries, the addition of the city engineer, changes in benefits, as well as a number of other changes. So when we build in those known changes, we could expect over the next 12 months to incur expense of about $1.7 million per year. Not a large increase, but some increase. And if we look to the future, if these change at a rate of 3% a year, then we'd want to build it